want the Atlas. Take it. It's yours. But Orion, I will burn to the ground.
Perhaps the suffering of my fellow citizens will finally stir something. How boring and small.
Creation itself!
Of death, my heart races. I am alive.
What is up, guys? Jay Diesel here. I am back with my week 2 update for Allflame League. A lot has changed since week 1. Most importantly, I did it. I am free of the heist mines. I finally found my pair of replica Alberons. I was slowly going insane, trying to run wing after wing after wing in an attempt to find them. But it is done. Additionally, all Ubers are down at this point. We are 36 challenges because I really wanted that portal effect, and I've been having an absolute blast still. My Brolo self-found, all my friends are having a good time. I've been very much enjoying myself this league. This has been a very fun league. The league mechanic has lost a little bit of its luster, but I'm having a lot of fun just kind of grinding, finding upgrades elsewhere, and I'm excited to go ahead and jump into the changes. Alright, let's go ahead and jump right into the gear. So taking a look here, as we can see, I have my replica Alberons, so we are a strength stacking build. This adds a ton of flat chaos damage, but does mean we can no longer deal non-chaos damage. As a result, we had to drop our Ellie sword. Instead, we're going to pick up the cool space sword. This is going to be made with an Awakener Slam, with one sword having endurance charge on melee stun, and the other having more attack damage to stock its skills. Take this, I used a Veiled Exalted Orb and went ahead and hit 38% chance to deal double damage while focused. Then just metamod crafted the attack speed and attacks this weapon penetrate chaos resistance. Additionally, I had a 26 quality Reaver Sword base that I had, which is what I then influenced and made this just to get an extra 1% attack speed with the Harvest enchant. Jumping over to the helmet, this was an absolutely massive hit. I have a Crown of Eyes here with socketed skill gems have 90% cost of reservation multiplier, which does stack with Enlighten. And then on top of that, hit 5% increased max life. This was made out of the temple. So what I did was I took the Crown of Eyes card, farmed a pretty good amount of them. And then I made a second character who was level 2. This means that when I do the double corrupt, if I manage to hit, the pool of available mods is a lot smaller, and I'm more likely to hit things like RMR, max life, resistance, as opposed to hitting something like +2 to the level of Warcry gems. So the pool was a lot better, so I ended up doing that. For the amulet here, this was actually a fairly involved craft that I got very lucky on to manage to get an amulet of even close to this quality in SSF. So the base itself actually comes from Bestiary, off specifically the Sockwine Rex. For context, that is the beast that allows you to fight Sockwolf first to the sky, which means that it's a fairly uncommon beast, and the talisman doesn't seem to drop that frequently. I killed at least a dozen of that beast and never saw the talisman drop. I eventually managed to spike it, and once I did, I went ahead and was able to influence it with a Crusader Orb, toggle that influence using the bench in order to turn it into a Shaper Amulet, at which point I went ahead, I alt spammed it until I hit increased attributes, used a Hinokora's Lock with a Black Morgan in order to see what the Awakener Slam was going to look like with various amulets, And once I found one that had an open suffix and open prefix, I went ahead and did the Awakener Slam, at which point I cleaned off my prefixes, and I used the Talisman Imprint Beast. Imprint it with strength, attributes, and suffixes can't be changed in order to give me multiple shots at the Reforge Attributes craft. Which, by the way, if you need to reforge attributes, you need the crystallized rancors. If you're playing SSF, it is the top right quadrant. There are anomalies in there, which give you a Sacred Grove encounter in which you can get these. At which point, I then reforged. If I hit a bad tier of attributes, I would just imprint back after using a nulls or doing whatever. I managed to hit T3 all attributes and said, okay, that's good enough. I need the int, I need the dex, and obviously I need the strength. At which point I went ahead, I now imprinted again, so I have a talisman with strength, all attributes, and percent increased all attributes. So then it was suffixes can't be changed, reforge influence, and on the second try, I got extremely lucky and managed to hit the 1% increased damage per 15 strength. I was over the moon when I hit this. This was absolutely crazy. At which point I imprint one final time and I just simply went ahead and exalt spammed until I eventually hit some tier of life. If I really wanted to push this further, I could either imprint back and then keep doing this until I hit tier 1 life and an open prefix. Or I could go ahead if there was like maybe another influence mod or whatever. But honestly, I'm happy. I didn't want to mess with this thing anymore. I did make a small mistake in crafting this amulet in that before I did any of the alt spamming, you can use a gilded fossil on a talisman like this. And there is a ducat craft, which actually adds Eldritch Implicit modifiers in place of the amulet's current implicit. So if you use a gilded fossil, you can actually toggle that into something else. Body armor is still the same as last time. I haven't elevated the implicits yet. I really do need to get over to Maven farming, but this is where we get our crit reduction, a little bit of extra PDR, big armor, ES for Divine Shield, and yeah, less damage taken per strength, max res. 2 rings, both just providing a lot of resistances and then some much needed attributes. This one has intelligence, this one has strength. Jumping down to the gloves, our old gloves have been phased out in favor of these. Went ahead, took some 26 quality Warlock gloves, fractured them with an Abyssal socket in order to be able to get in an extra Abyss Jewel here. At that point, it was just spam attack speed essences, actually, until we eventually hit T1 Dexterity, at which point you can go ahead and use the Boatcraft to toggle that T1 Dexterity into a T1 Strength roll. The prefixes still need a little bit of work, but I ran out of Veiled Chaos and haven't had a strong desire to want to go back and farm Syndicate again, so I'm still kind of holding out on that. As for the belt, just the Hunter Influence Stygian Vice from last time, increased attributes, D1 Strength, some life, res, all that good stuff. As for the flask setup here, we are currently doing a Life Flask for Corrupted Blood, Sin's Rebirth. This allows us to get Unholy Might on hit. This is where we're getting our Wither. We attack so many times per second that this stacks up almost instantly, so this is very nice. A Ruby Flask, because we have the Rex Talisman up here, which means that max fire res kind of doubles as max lightning and cold res for everything except for dot damage. A Quicksilver, because I like going fast, and Curse Reduction, because curses are annoying. And then finally a little bit of rarity on a Silver Flask for more attack speed, movement speed, and it's just nice to get a little extra chance to spike some high tier uniques. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at our tree here. Our ascendancies haven't changed at all, still rocking Undeniable, Unstoppable, Unflinching, and Unrelenting. In terms of unique jewels that have been added since last time, we did pick up a Watcher's Eye with Chaos Res while affected by Purity Elements. This is really nice to have, as it is a massive source of Chaos Res, especially when we drop our second Cogwork ring, once we need to get a Nimbus in. Additionally, we finally found a Natural Affinity, which is really cool. This gives us Nature's Patience, which is those grasping vines that you see build up around my character. This lets us take less damage and have a higher chance to deal double damage. We still have the Foulborn Red Dream. I might be looking to drop this, actually. Picking up these 2 points just doesn't quite feel worth it, given we don't need the all-res right now. And I might just want these strength point backs, and I'll replace this with something else. Down here, we have our Lethal Pride. We got a fairly decent Lethal Pride here. It's got 5% strength and 5% chance to deal double damage, while also having 2 different nodes with a rage on melee hit, making our rage generation fairly good. And finally, as you will notice with the crazy long pathing here, we are rocking 2 split personalities, both on strength. The secondary mods leave a little bit to be desired as we have mana and armor, but that would require a lot more simulacrum farmings to find better one, and I might get around to that, but that is pretty low on my priority list right now. Aside from that, we have a bunch of rare jewels. These are all going to have things like, there's going to be 2 with energy shield on hit and mana on hit, which are important for ES recovery and mana recovery. And the rest of the jewels are all going to have things like max fire res, life on hit, just overall solid jewels that round out our character and help get our max fire res up, so that way we're able to make the most out of our talisman. That covers like the rare jewels. As for the clusters, they're all more or less the same. They're going to have martial mastery, martial prowess, and then some third node, which is going to sit in the back here. We're never actually going to take it. Martial prowess gives us tons of attack speed along with accuracy rating, which becomes more attack speed. Martial mastery is the same, just 20% increase attack speed and 20 strength. So these are all quite nice. So this one's plus 5 strength. This one's got plus 5 strength. And then this last guy down here has 3 all res. So actually got some pretty nice small passive bonuses as well. And additionally, we also have 2 rune grafts here. So the first one is Rune Graft of Treachery. This is 15% RMR. Really nice as it makes our mana feel a lot comfier. Additionally, it has no downside for us. The only aura we have that could apply to enemies is Purity of Elements, but we do purely chaos damage, so that doesn't really matter. And then jumping over here, we have Rune Graft of the Warp. Buffs lasting longer is very nice for things like shrines and things like that, while the debuffs expiring faster is very nice, especially when dealing with things like Wither, which is probably one of the more lethal effects that you can deal with. And it prevents those wither stacks from scaling super high unless you're being hit a bajillion times. And it's just a very nice comfort all around thing to have access to. And all right, let's go ahead and jump into the PoB config here. So first off, we are going to be killing all the bandits. We want that juicy passive point. We're going to be taking Soul of Lunaris for movement speed and reduced LE damage. Minor God, Tukohama, PDR, and regen while stationary. As for the time spent stationary, this is going to be 5. This is your ramped damage if you're standing still doing something like a deep delve node or whatnot, or you just want to stand there and just whack everything around you. You could drop this to 1 second if you're just leap slamming around the map, need to pause for a second to do some DPS. Either way, most of the time if you're hitting something beefy, this is going to be at 5 if you're doing harder content. Otherwise, your 1 is going to be more than sufficient for killing pretty much anything else. Frenzy charges, we get this from Blood Rage. Endurance charges, you're going to be getting this from your Ascendancy. We do have Life Tap pretty much all the time. This is in our Cast While Damage Taken setup. As for Fortification, I set this to 10. You have Fortify on your Leap Slam. If you watch a lot of the gameplay footage, you're able to have Fortify up. Now, if you're doing something like an Uber Boss, you're probably not Leap Slamming on top of them and doing enough damage for this Fortification to be 10, so this might be lacking against bosses. But in your mapping, frankly, this is going to be 20 most of the time, as long as you're jumping from pack to pack. But I choose to leave this as 10, just to be a little conservative. Rage of 30, we have 2 Rage on hit from our Lethal Pride setup, so you're going to be at max Rage in pretty much any mapping scenario pretty easily. Now, number of nearby enemies is currently set to 1. We have a Mastery that gives us 5% attack speed per nearby enemy. If you are jumping into a pack, your attack speed is going to explode, and you're going to have like 10 enemies around you, maybe even more. Though, to be conservative, and assuming maybe you're doing bossing or just beating up a really tough rare, we're going to say there's only 1 enemy nearby. You can toggle this as you see fit. As for our stance, we're going to be in Sand Stance. This is just due to the fact that we're using Flesh and Stone for additional tankiness. Finally, projectile travel distance. This is assuming you're on top of the target. If you jump directly on top of them, you're Goomba stomping them, and then you start swinging, then yeah, you're going to be about a meter away. The enemy will be at close range, since you're basically going to be on top of them. As for wither stacks being 15, our source of wither on hit actually comes from our flask. Now, I have my flask set to only go off if I am dealing with rares or unique enemies. You could try to have it proc when charges reach full, but if I'm hopping between normal packs or magic packs, I really don't feel the need to have my wither stacks up. I'm going to shred through everything anyway. So I choose to have it reserved only for rares and uniques. As for the configuration setup, you'll notice these custom modifiers here. In terms of the projectile count, along with these 75% less damage modifiers, these have been borrowed from Conquerors. He's somebody who does strength stacking builds and has much more experience calculating the damage of Molten Strike of the Zenith. The additional 33% less damage is because I do not have a Nimbus. I'm using returning projectile support, which means that half of half my damage, it is doing 33% or 66% less damage, which amounts to 33% less damage overall. But overall, damage is pretty healthy here. In terms of our effective hit pool, this is assuming no guard skill is up. We actually have really great uptime on our guard skills. So if you go ahead and we take a look at the skill section here, and we go ahead and toggle on our Immortal Call, suddenly this jumps up dramatically, and you've got an LE max hit of 262k. It's also worth noting, because of our amulet, any hit-based elemental damage we're taking is going to be on this fire number, right? It's not going to be on the cold or lightning max hit. Though these will be necessary for any degens we take. If we take a cold dot or we take a lightning dot, it is going to be on those. Talking about our guard setup here, we have a cast when damage taken setup with Immortal Call and Sigil of Power. This is really good for standing still. You've got a lot of enemies rushing you. Reduce their damage, increase your own tankiness. We have an enhance in here in order to increase our uptime on our Immortal Call and to reduce the amount of damage we take while affected by Sigil of Power. Our Leap Slam, we're going to have faster attacks and Fortified. This is a nice little extra defensive layer we get while hopping around the map. Molten Strike of the Zenith, it's going to have returning projectiles. Molten Strike of the Zenith, wish that I had a 21, need to farm more lab, haven't gotten around to it. Greater multi-strike, slower proj, volatility, and GMP. We have a Sniper's Mark with Mark on Hit, Blood Rage, and a cast when damage taken setup. I could drop the Enhance from my main setup and put the Blood Rage over there. I might do that when I need this link for Wither, but I would need to get Balance of Terror to enable that. And last but not least, our Aura setup, which is Purity of Elements, Arctic Armor, and Lighten and Flesh and Stone. I might actually end up adding an aspect of Lunaris potentially for additional tankiness, but I have to make sure that it works with the reservation and figure out what item I'm willing to give up a suffix on in order to enable that. And that's going to do it for our skills. Alrighty guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. If you have any questions or comments, be sure to drop them down below. I've really been enjoying myself this league. I think there's probably one more update I want to do for this character, and I'll feel mostly satisfied with where he's ended up. But thank you guys so much for following along. I hope you guys are having an awesome league. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And please stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.